All right, Carlos Gomez, thank you, man, for joining me on this Facebook Live event. And I think what we're trying to do here is to help people. Um, I know that you and I, we've been good friends, obviously, for many, many years. And now as we're talking, we recognize that there's just a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear that people are experiencing. And so really what I want to do for today and for a series that we're going to be doing throughout this week and maybe in days to come, we're just still kind of organic, so we're asking people to be patient with us. But what we really want to do is we want to be able to provide some information as therapists, how we can help people. And so the first thing is we just all have to collectively acknowledge that we are living in unprecedented times, that what we're facing as a country right now and in our communities is something that we just have never gone through before. And so anytime that there's uncertainty, anytime that there's real change like this, there certainly is a lot of anxiety. The second thing that I want to talk about, just really kind of at a base level, is, as I'm scratching my nose, is following the protocols that are put out by the CDC. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm terrible about touching my face and my beard and stuff. So but the first thing is follow the recommendations that are there. Wash your hands for 20 seconds, use the hand sanitizer, at least has 60% alcohol. Avoid social contact. So here we are, in Facebook, we can have healthy conversations here. Don't go into groups larger than 50 unless they're on Facebook or some other platform. And just restrict your travel as well. So these are all the things that the CDC has put out that you know because everybody's been putting these things out on Facebook and on Instagram and the various platforms. So you know what the recommendations are. So what we want to do is we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about as members in our respective communities. Miami is getting hit right now. So is New Orleans. New Orleans right now it's a hotbed. Unfortunately, it's spreading, and we want to be able to kind of address some of the fears and anxieties that are there, and how to approach this as two therapists who have worked with people who have struggled with fear and anxiety. So, Carlos, what thoughts do you have about crisis, about change,
Sure.
Just in general, before we kind of get into some practicalities?
Sure. So, like Mario, I'm also a father, husband. I have 5 kids at home. And some of these questions I've had to face both for myself as a father, as a professional, but the reality is that we are in a crisis. And when we hear the word crisis, we automatically think kind of, and some people are acting as if the world's ending, the country's going to shut down. But the reality is that crisis, in the most basic sense, is a time when we are recognizing that our traditional experiences, problem-solving strategies, our assumptions of day-to-day living no longer fit.
Right.
Now, I like to always try to bring things to the most normal experience. Like for those of your parents, having a child.
Right.
For those of you who finishing high school, finishing college, any major event, unfortunately, could be a death of somebody.
Right.
Loss of a job. A crisis is one of those situations you say, you know what? Everything looks the same, everything feels the same, but things are not the same. And so
I was going to say that's how I felt going into work this morning. It was perfect. It's sunny. It's a nice day. The kids are healthy, but we're coming home. We're going right into the office, and you just know it's different though. Something about today is different. And so I just want to articulate what you just said is absolutely the right thing. That our assumptions are way off, and that's causing a lot of panic.
It's funny, as you talk about that, I think of the Twilight Zone. Now, it almost puts me in the boomer territory. Thank God for Disney having Tower of Terror. Otherwise, I'd be a total boomer here. But there's something about everything looking the same and being completely different. Yeah, last night I was going to go for a run, ended up going for a walk. And I'm walking through where we live in Miami. They're touching my face. Where in Miami, there's it's very very bustling on a Sunday night, and I'm walking, and I have gone for a midnight run sometimes, and it felt like it was midnight more than it was like 8 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And the reality is, yes, we're afraid, and it seems that the news become more and more restrictive. But the thing, as I talk to my own family, as I had I voluntarily have placed my family on a 2-week, let's say, restriction. Just out of charity, because I have 5 children. I mean, we're healthy. I expect us to manage anything fine, but out of charity and also out of prudence, until we know more about this, I felt the prudent thing to do was really, once we knew people we know, We haven't had contact with people we know who have the coronavirus. So we realized, okay, this is now most likely community-wide. And, and so we're going to do the right thing. And one thing I say, and guess what, guys? Tomorrow, and imagine 3 teenagers, how popular I was at home. But I say, guys, and tomorrow morning, something miraculous is going to happen. The sun's going to come up.
That's right. Amen.
And so you mentioned the sun comes up. But what's important when we look at a crisis is it is unprecedented, anything like this. It has never, it has happened. In 100 years, it hasn't happened, right?
Right.
But not since we could communicate, we could see it coming. It's almost like the hurricane, or like a hurricane for New Orleans or for Miami is an example.
Right.
Where you see it and you have this cone of uncertainty and you're looking at it. The reality is that we don't know, okay? As it is, and that's the uncertainty. We don't know. I mean, we don't know. We talk about age groups, but we don't know what genetic makeup of what people are more susceptible to it. Right. The reality is, as I said, in my family, all that matters is 0 or 1. Either we're going to get seriously ill or we're not going to get seriously ill.
Right.
But what's important in light of all this is to recognize that there's a lot of things in place that need to continue. So one thing is, for example, as parents, I suspect that's who we're talking to right now, is it's really important first for us to acknowledge our own anxiety, to have a way to express that, but also to have the awareness that what our families need right now, as much as possible, is stability.
That's right.
So we took a couple days off.
Great.
I said, today, life continues.
That's right.
I'm at work and life continues.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So to that point that you said in terms of expressing anxiety, I think that I want to say that's the first point. I have 4 points that I want to bring across, and I'm sure you have others that you want to add as well and want to be honored the time as well. The first thing is, I'm an attachment theorist, and so I think in that way. And the attachment system means that, like, in moments of anxiety, in moments of fear, we need security in our relationships. Okay? Yes. And so now is the time to activate the attachment response. Now is the time for us to cling to our loved ones, not in a way of panic, but just in a way of saying, like, this is where security really finds itself in. Not in sports, not in consumerism, not in all the other false attachments that we have. That the first thing I think we need to recognize is that we all have some anxiety, and we need to acknowledge that and give space for that. So Kristen and I, we have talked every day pretty much over the last 4 or 5 days. We talk every day usually, but very deliberately about what are the limits with our kids. What are the things we are going to allow our kids to do or not do? How many friends can come over to the house? Who cannot come over to the house? Does anybody come over to the house? Right now we're in that boat that nobody can come to the house.
Right.
But me just even being vulnerable with Kristen and sharing, like, I'm really afraid right now, gives her the space to be able to meet me in that fear and in that anxiety. Even with the kids, similar. It's not, I know that the attachment system, it's, again, not necessarily reciprocity right there. You want to have boundaries with your kids, but recognizing that there's a place where we have to cling to the people who really understand and give us the freedom to share and express. You and I, obviously, we're really good friends. We've been talking, having the freedom to be able to share. So the first thing that we want to encourage people is to say, stay attached. Stay attached to your close ones. Don't be afraid to share and to reveal kind of what your anxiety is, and give space for them to be able to speak to that.
So if I can give, in listening to you, if I can give one word to this, would be engage. Does that sound? Engage?
Yeah.
And so we're being asked the word social distancing is really physical distancing. So
Correct.
And it's really important for us to engage. So you may not be able, just because you can't be physically with somebody, and to encourage us around you to engage, to not disengage. Because isolation leads to stress, and isolation reduces, if nothing else, your immune system, right?
Right.
So the first word I'm here to say, Mario, is engage. And I agree. It's important to engage those who are stakeholders. Those who, and the engagement is both, are you doing okay? And let them know we're doing okay.
Right.
Or today I'm having a really not a great day, forgive me. There's a place where my kids were very concerned, one of my kids, about me coming to work on Friday afternoon. By yesterday, she was like, "You're going to work tomorrow, right, Dad?" So there's a place where,
get out of the house.
Again, yeah, because I'm on military mode now. Okay?
Yeah.
But because the reality is this, as of particularly last night, when we are being asked to limit the right to assembly in some ways, you would say, right?
Correct.
There's some areas where it hits very close to heart. So the reality is that there is a problem. At this point, it's impossible to deny. So it's not so much about assessing there's a problem, but within that is, no, let me go to your next point. I'll add my pieces to it.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
the next point then, going along with engaged, is honestly prayer. Like this should have been the first point, just trying to build off the attachment system and saying stay
Sure.
with your close family relationships.
Mhm.
But prayer, honestly, like this is a time when we recognize, like, like there's a lot we don't control, and I'm not trying to be funny about it, but like in all sincerity, the reality is that it brings those thoughts to greater clarity about how vulnerable we are. In the Lord is the space, is the place to be able to bring forth those vulnerabilities. Prayer is certainly important, and I know, again, we have prayed. We need to pray. We've prayed on this channel. I've prayed, done a few rosaries, and may continue to do those as well, because it's just now's the time to recommit and to. So certainly from a spiritual aspect, but then even from a mental health standpoint, not to be reductionistic of the relationship with God, but from a mental health standpoint, having that time, again, go back to that sense of security, having that space where you can freely share is crucial in being able to manage one's fears and anxiety.
So Mario, when you say prayer, right? I always like to get to the concrete. It's not my natural instinct, but so it's something I have to work on. Tell us, like, what do you mean by prayer? I mean, beyond God, please keep me safe. God, please, beyond that. I mean, what part of prayer? Tell us, if you don't mind, about in your experience. So in prayer, what kind of prayer are you talking about?
I think a couple things. One, praying the Rosary, holding to the staples that we know are there. So praying the Rosary. If you can't go to Mass, we didn't go to Mass this weekend. That wasn't. We just made the decision that we didn't think that it was the most prudent thing to do, given the situation here as it's kind of happening. So we said the prayers of the Mass together as a family and the readings.
Mm-hmm.
I think certainly crying out in vulnerability to the Lord in relationship, but then even praying over one another. I mean, the power of praying over my spouse or praying over my kids to help ease their anxiety. I mean, we believe that God hears us. The Lord hears the cry of the poor, and right now is one of those opportunities to be able to be in prayer with the Lord. That's what I mean.
Yeah. To that, I would add, also meditation, contemplation. And for me in my own prayer, something that has been, God, please help me understand and see what I should see in this. One of the things that I have seen is a lot of goodness coming from this crisis. And in no way am I, the reality is we're going to know people who are going to die in this. I mean that's the scary part. Okay, so it's easy. So today I'm okay. Tomorrow I may not be okay. So I'm not preaching. I'm just saying. But there's a place where I'm seeing some companies behave very responsibly.
Yeah, which is great.
I'm seeing people go out of their way. I'm trying to teach my own children about how we need to sacrifice for others in our restriction of mobility, but also I think finding God in beauty, looking at beauty, trying to have the opportunity that there's a place where Facebook is only going to give you so much information.
Correct.
Or these shows, the news, at some point it's going to be saturated. And the question is, how do we quiet down and find something that has been lost in this?
Yeah.
Is there a place to find that also?
Yeah, you're right on it. And I think it's funny, we're doing this on Facebook trying to give people information when part of the information we're trying to tell people is disengage and not always be seeking. And the reason that people seek answers in this time, and the reason we're all hooked to Facebook right now or to the news outlets, is because we're all afraid. We're all afraid. And our amygdalas are all out of whack right now. And what we're trying to find is, like you said at the beginning in terms of crisis, we're trying to find stability in the midst of the instability. And so the way that we feel, the clearest way that we often resort to in finding stability is finding data, finding information. And so we hoard towards Facebook, we hoard towards the news, that if I just know a little bit more.
I'm sorry, this would not be a show without the slapstick of we hoard toilet paper.
Yes, we hoard toilet paper. Exactly. We turn to the things that we're trying to find comfort in when the answers sometimes aren't going to come. And I think the lack of clarity, the lack of answers is part of the prayer. It's part of the vulnerability that we are all collectively experiencing right now. And there is no answer to that. And damn, that's hard, because I wish I had an answer. I wish I knew what clarity looked like in this to ease my own fears. But that's just not the case right now. And so, short of falling into widespread panic, which would be the worst thing that could happen to our communities right now, is we all have to disengage a little bit. If your anxiety is too high, then you have to turn off the phone. If you are checking every few hours to see what the latest count is on the people in your community that are getting sick, you have to stop. And you have to, if you're adhering to the things that you can do, then there are other things that you can do to make yourself feel a little bit better. And that means disengaging with the information, setting real restrictions in terms of how often you're on Facebook or how often you're on social media, how often you're getting the information or seeking for that information. You need to let go a little bit and resort to other things then. Now's the time to be together with your family. Watch those movies. You talk about responsibility. Thanks to a Disney, they put out Frozen 2 on Sunday 3 months before they had it out. I wasn't trying to be cheeky, just a little bit. You know what we watched Saturday night? We watched Tangled. I just thought watching a movie about a girl who was recluse for 18 years of her life might be an appropriate film for us to watch as a family.
So, Mark, quick question. What was the name of the kingdom?
I don't remember. What's the name of the kingdom? I don't remember.
Corona.
Was it really? In Tangled, it was Corona, really?
The kingdom of Corona.
Oh, God have mercy.
I mean, and so this leads to the next thing. Be careful how the quality of information you get, right? Because all of a sudden we could say that Tangled predicted. I have seen so much crazy stuff being passed around, right?
Yes.
And this is a reality. Talk about the amygdala, trying to make sense of things. Two things I share with my family, and again, and of course I share with them more. The reality is more for me, I think, also. But the reality is we see in Job, right? Job wants to know why, and he's what's God's response?
I'm the master of the universe. Were you there when I created the stars? Were you there when I separated the water of the heavens to the water in the ground? I mean, that's so God's response.
Reality in our atheistic living. So the thing is, many times we're religious, but we live like atheists or agnostics, right? Mm-hmm. God is Lord. God is Lord in the box I want to put him, right? The reality is that we don't know.
Right.
But the second thing I like that I mentioned to my kids, if you look with, I think it's in Matthew, right after Jesus, and I'm not a scholar by any means, but I mean, right after Jesus, right after Peter denies, Peter says, assures his love for Jesus, for God, for Jesus 3 times. The next question is, once he seems to get it, well, what about this guy? What about John? And Jesus says, if I want him to stay with me until the end of time, what's it to you, bud?
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's a real place where, it's like, he is God and I am not.
And his plan and his ways are not our ways.
And in our own families, we want to be God to our families. And the reality is that we're not, and we don't know. And so what we can do, and again, is to behave rationally. And to follow rational things that we can do to protect our family and protect others. So you already mentioned the CDC, guys. People have heard it over and over again. Even Dr. Oz, I saw recently, was saying that this is if we could find a 50% vaccine, right now, do it at home. I mean, people would be mixed. I'm adding to it. People have been mixing alcohol. People have been using booze. I mean, all this stuff people have been using for it. The reality is just washing our hands for 20 seconds. Don't touch your face. I mean, these things do make a big difference. Those are the things that we have control over. If you have a beard, shave it. If you have a mustache, shave it. Right, Mario?
I know.
I'm kidding.
They say it. I know. They say it. I know.
Really?
They said it with regards to a mask. Like I've heard not necessarily that it contains the virus, but if you're going to wear a mask, like having a beard doesn't help. That's what I read, and I don't know if that's misinformation or not. I don't know. So
I love to rib Mario about his beard, but no,
because you're so old school, you don't know what.
Because I can't grow one.
Because you can't grow one.
I have said it now. Okay, I can now go in peace if I need to. Okay, no, but about masks, really serious issue. People, I was at the grocery store last night. And I see people with the mask, put it on, put it off, put it on, put it off. CDC is giving recommendations about masks. It's not because, having worked in healthcare settings, I have worked in a highly infectious disease floor. The reality is you have to have the right mask.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you have the right mask, you have to be properly fitted for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is that unless you know the proper fitting for your mask, and the first thing we did is we would take it, as soon as you leave, you take it and you dispose of it.
Right.
I can't think of a worse thing to do is to put a mask to suck in whatever stuff you have and put it back down. As a matter of fact, you take it this way, you take it off, and then you wash your hands. So the reality is that, there's a lot of people mistrust the government, but the reality is the most important thing we can do right now is engage in rational behavior.
Right.
And realizing that no action is perfect, but adding more steps, adding more things is not going to help. It's really not going to help us. Mario, what's your third point?
So last point, fourth point at this point, and we're just gonna.
Okay.
I don't want to go too long. We're at 21 minutes now.
I understand that.
So
Sure.
the last point here is kind of what we've been talking about in terms of being rational. At the same time, also kind of getting out of your head. So my concern is when we've seen people who have a lot of anxiety, what we tend to do is ruminate, and we tend to get stuck in our own thinking and stinking thinking and trying to analyzing and overanalyzing and getting the information and what can I do, and so that type of thinking isn't always rational, actually, and isn't even always what's best for you. And so if you find yourself kind of ruminating and stewing and constantly thinking about this, like, you have to get out of your head. And that means basic things. You can still go on a run and be outside, and if weather permits, and have social distancing. Go outside. Maybe don't go to the gym. Maybe now is not the time that you're gonna be doing your CrossFit workout with at your favorite gym anymore. At least not right now. But you can still be outside. Go on a run. Go garden. Go do something physical outside. And so you're not just kind of inside and stuck in your own head. And then even with that, again, just being able to share and communicate and express with others what the concerns are, what the fears are that you're having. And then lastly, just clinging to hope, again, I'm not trying to be trite about it. And hope is very active. And I've said this, throughout anybody who's followed me in any of my shows or anything I've written over the last year and a half. I've spent a lot of time thinking about hope. And now's the time that we have to certainly cling to hope and to recognize that, like there are things that we don't have answers to, there are things we don't have control over, but there are things that we do have control over. And that at the end of the day, this too shall pass also. And we just have to be responsible through the midst of this and see what happens here over the next couple months. Last thoughts, Carlos. What do you got?
Yeah. So again, I'd say two things about rational behavior. And it's obviously this is not the place for it, but the way we manage today does have a lot to do with how we managed in the past. Mm-hmm. And so one important thing to do is to, rather than think of the worst that can happen, maybe touch back on a time in your life when you had a big challenge. What strengths? What have you done to cope through it? If you don't mind, let's maybe do an example here. And now I also recognize that for some people who experience trauma, who've experienced some really painful things in life where things may have not worked out, where they may be stuck in this fear, in this feeling of lack of control, the feeling that things are kind of coming down again, it may be time to seek some help.
Right.
A lot of therapists, I sent out an email to some of my colleagues today about asking, what are you guys doing? How are you guys practicing? Because I suspect a lot of people are beginning to do Zoom conferencing, very much similar to video conferences. There are other ways, and there's and I suspect, in spite of all the difficulties we're going through, that we're ushering a new age. We're ushering a virtual age, and I'm hopeful that in this ushering a new age and getting away from, especially from first world problems, that we might become more human. We might become more aware. In many ways, I was joking with my kids that they sit. Sometimes people will text each other in the same house, and now that is taken away from us. Where we don't have the option to go talk to somebody. Right. So maybe we can take a time to, in some of Lent for us Catholics, of sacrifice, to both, first of all, reflect on what have I done, what are some times of crisis I've had in my life, and recognizing where God has been and how God has brought incredible things, new beginnings out of things that look not so great. And the second thing is to, again, is to recognize, what have I taken for granted in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever restrictions we have, they're going to end. I mean, I have just like stock market will go back up,
That's
and
right.
life will return to normal. And I think it's important to know life will return to normal.
Right.
But am I willing to allow this experience for God, for my heart, to change and become more human, become more of who I am meant to be because of this? What am I learning in this about myself that needs to change? I think these are questions that we need to ask ourselves, And again, if you need help, there are therapists. Many hospitals are offering therapy online. There's a lot of different ways to seek help, and I think it's a good time to do that if you need to. We just have to be willing to do the same things differently, and change is not always bad. There was a time, even for traditionals, there was a time when the organ was an invention at Mass. So just like Mass has evolved, just like life evolves. And on a closing note, what I tell my children, and I tell myself, and when I was very active in clinical work in hospitals, people, they have traumas and crisis. Change, the only constant in life is change. Mm-hmm. And we have to accept that. And we are going through changes. Mm-hmm. My prayer is that we can minimize suffering, particular physical suffering. And that's something that I have control over. And so during this time, I'm going to focus on things that we have control over. Knowing that 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 8 weeks, if it is, I'm hoping it won't be that long. It's about a glimpse. But how can we use this time? How do we not waste this opportunity? For many parents, kids coming home from college, kids about to college, this is an opportunity to try to reorganize and reassess our lives in a way that we can all be much better for it. And in the same way that we talk about social contagion, mm-hmm. about the virus multiplying, our good actions, our good perspective, we can try to bring that also to other people out of love, not out of an agenda, just out of love. So that would be, we are out of control. We can reduce what we do, but reality is chaotic out there. Mm-hmm. And, I have mercy for our government leaders. I mean, people really don't know what to do right now. Right. We're doing the best we can with very bad information, but ask yourself, what can I do to become a better person? And that becomes a challenge. It becomes our Lent challenge.
Amen. Amen.
And
well, Carlos, I think let's bring this to a close for today. We're going to do more of these. And so if you're watching this live or if you're watching this after the fact, please leave some comments, questions below. Future topics that we will be talking about is how to address this with your kids. I think we can dive more into kind of a spirituality of fear and praying and what we can do better there. Also in terms of like therapists and how therapists can handle this with their clients. So these are ideas that Carlos and I we've been talking about. And so we want to hear what you guys have to think. And so if you have comments or topics that you would want us to address, we want to be helpful. And we're here trying to serve and doing the best that we can to be at service of you, the listener and the viewer. So please let us know what you think. And
our two more things, topics you want to have on.
Yes.
This is there's like a tent hospital. We're just putting this up.
Yep.
If there's a need for it, we'll do it. If there's not a need for it, we won't do it. Our goal is, what can we do to give back? That's right. The goal for doing this. So if there's something valuable here, please let us know.
That's right. Amen. All right. Thanks, bro.
Take care, Mario.
All right. God bless. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.